we do?
We don't have the mayor, we don't have,
Kathy's sick, she won't be here tonight.
she's
She's
sick?
at home sick. Tom Klistic will not be here.
And neither will
Sylvia's not here.
Sylvia should
We're going?
be here.
Oh, she is coming
Okay,
tonight?
sounds good, thank you.
No,
Wait, did she tell me last night? No, I'm sorry, she's not.
Okay.
Maybe the next meeting.
Okay, guys,
Tina,
He just came out and said.
everybody ready? Okay. I call to order the Administrative Finance Committee of the Whole meeting. This is budget meeting number 1. Just a reminder to everybody, please speak into the microphones, okay?
Ted, you might want to wait for one more so we get the quorum.
we don't have. a
Oh, we
quorum.
need a quorum? Okay.
One of the aldermen, yeah.
Check that. Where's our other floor alderman at?
We have a quorum, I mean, of a
When
majority of
Tina-
the
when
quorum
Tina
of the
arrives.
admin committee,
When
but,
Tina arrives, will be.
As a committee of the whole,
well, it's admin finance / committee of the whole, so.
Should we be on the safe side and just wait a little
Yeah.
bit, or what? All
Yeah.
right, okay. What happens if nobody else shows
Yeah.
up?
We cancel the budget meeting. I rearranged my whole schedule for this meeting tonight. How are you feeling today versus yesterday?
Yeah, a little bit better.
That's good.
It was rough last week.
Paul, what was it, switch?
I rather drive.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that. I mean, I started in this whole gig when I was 16 years old. Believe it or not.
16? Public works?
There's that stuff on eBay.
Started low.
Thanks, John. All right, let's try this one again. All right, I call to the order the Administrative Finance Committee of the Whole. This is budget meeting number 1. And again, just a reminder, please speak into the microphone so the people at home can hear us. As a refresher, I'm going to start off by talking about the highlights of the revenue and expenses for the general fund, and then we'll go into each category into details. 2 items for the people at home you'll hear a lot of. Maintenance items, items of maintenance we rarely touch on. If the aldermen want to go ahead and talk about something, please stop me, cut me off, whatever you need to do so we can talk about these items. Discretionary or expansion items, as I like to call them, we will talk about them in detail and go over them, each and every one of them. 2 items that we'll definitely be talking about throughout this whole process I want to let everybody know about is the police pension. And one of the highlights of that is that that's going to be going up 43% approximately in the next 3 years. So we're going to have a discussion on funding that. And at the same time, for fiscal year ending 19, our capital projects, if you take a look at it, it's showing that we're going to be in the red of $940,000. The reality is we're going to be in the red about $440,000 because $500,000 of that is from our reserve balance that we put off to the side. We only use that in case of emergency. In the end, it still doesn't matter. We're still going to be $440,000 in the red. So again, we're going to have that discussion. During this budget process, before we started, the mayor, the treasurer, Administrator Vanna, and myself all agreed that this is going to be a huge topic about how we're going to be able to fund this going into the future. We knew eventually that the costs were going to be past the revenues, and in about 3 years, this is when it's going to happen. But as I say to the aldermen as we go forward, the most important 3 things that we offer in the city of Darien is the police and the safety, to make sure that we always have that funded. We also want to make sure that we always maintain our infrastructure, and we always want to remember that we always have services from for the people of Darien that they've come to expect. We don't want to ever think about getting rid of those. So as we get into the discussion in the future, especially towards the end of the budget process, we're going to have a big discussion on how we're going to end up increasing revenue. So I'm just preparing everybody for that. Is there any questions at all so far?
Alderman, just
Please.
as we all go through the budget, just a reminder, all of these have page numbers, because, we all have the paper copy, and you can see most of the staff have backup material. Our computers are on with backup material, but if we're referring to this budget document, it does have page numbers, so we could all kind of follow along if there's questions or as you're going through this.
Cool. Anybody else? All right, let's start with page 6 for the general fund summary. All right, our revenue that we budgeted for this year was $13,526,000. We actually came in at $14,010,906, an increase of $485,000. Reason being is because we ended up getting the bond money after the fiscal year ended, so that's what the increase in the revenue was for that. Under expenditures for City Council, we budgeted $101,799, and we came in at $76,599, a savings of $25,000. Mostly because of cable operations and consulting services. Under administration, our budget was $1,034,538, and we came in at $965,591, a savings of $69,000, mostly because of salaries, liability insurance, and again, consulting services. Under community development, our budget was $858,445. We came in at $737,650, a savings of $121,000, which is all because of the Walmart. Now, you look at that number and say, well, it's great that we ended up having less expenditures, but remember, it's all based on sales. And as we go forward, more sales are being produced for the payback for Walmart. But again, we'll get into that in the detail later on. Police, our budget was $7,318,204. We came in at $7,012,379, a savings of $306,000, mostly because of salaries, lower medical insurance, operating costs, including gas and maintenance. And then on public works and streets, our budget was $2,235,040, and we came in at $2,168,417. A savings of $67,000, and again, that's mostly because of lower gas prices and lower benefits. Our total expenditures we were budgeted for was $11,548,000, but with those savings, we actually came in at $10,960,636. We were supposed to have a fiscal year balance of $1,978,000, but it was actually increased by $1,072,044 for an actual fiscal year balance of $3,050,270. Our ending fund balance for FYE 15 was $2,649,500. With that fiscal year balance of $3,050,000 gave us an ending fund balance of $5,699,770. We transferred to capital projects $2,012,658, and we're actually going to come in an ending fund balance of $3,687,112.
Alderman, just to clarify again for anybody who might be watching at home, when you're saying what the numbers we're going to come in at, that number's an estimate based on where we're at in expenses year to date, plus we forecast through the rest of the fiscal year. So those numbers are our best estimate at this point. They will certainly change as we go through the rest of the fiscal year, but again, just so people understand what those numbers are.
Great, thank you, Brian. As we look out, basically to fiscal year ending 18 as well as fiscal year 19. And actually, let me step back a second. For fiscal year ending 17, we're looking for discretionary items of $1,143,179, and again, we'll go into that in detail. But if we end up hitting our numbers at the ending fund balance of $3,687,112, and we end up spending our discretionary expenditures, our ending fund balance will be $2,736,692. When we go to 18, we plan on transferring to capital $1,850,000, and with a fiscal year balance in 18 of $1,842,017. And if we have an ending fund balance of $2,728,709 going to 19, it looks like our fiscal year balance for that year, we're anticipating a balance of $1,426,149 for a ending fund balance of $4,154,000, and then another transfer to capitals of $1,425,000, leaving us with $2,729,858. The thing I want you to highlight and I want you to take a look at is under FYE 19, the total police budget will be $8,537,000, which will be a big increase from our current year at $7,012,000. Any questions so far? Please.
I'd just like to make a couple overall comments, Ted, in terms of this. In terms of your preface, I agree. The nice thing that we do here, we do a 3-year projection, which I think is very helpful. So there's no immediate need in terms of when we talk about raising revenues. The nice thing is we're projecting that shortfall in the 3rd year. So while there's no immediate need, it's allowing us the opportunity now to start looking at it and addressing it. The earlier we do, the better, because if there's ways we can cut back, it will mitigate somewhat that need in the 3rd year. But even as you go even beyond the 3rd year, you know, the need is even going to be more dramatic. So it is good you emphasize that, but it's also good that we're recognizing it early in the process where we still have time to react and look at things. Secondly, this budget that we're presenting tonight assumes that the state of Illinois does not change anything as far as what we're getting. There have been all sorts of discussion. The governor, Brian, was kind enough to pass along his excerpts today to his budget presentation, and he seems to be pulling back on his proposal to pull back on the state income tax that's allocated to us. Apparently not in there, but we don't know that that won't disappear or something else won't disappear. I think everybody knows the state of Illinois is not in very good position, and I think it's also true that everybody's going to have to chip in something, whether it's us individually or us as a municipality. So I'm sure we're going to get a haircut on some of these items at some point somewhere if Springfield ever gets their act together and is able to pass some budget. I did have one overall question on this first page, and it probably relates more to procedurally what we've been doing over a long period of time. Brian, when we prepare this, we always project the fund balance at about $2.7 million, because ever since I've been treasurer here, we've said we like to keep a 3-month reserve in the general fund. But my reading of it would be now, I mean, as we're looking into next year's budget, the 3 months reserve, if we're looking at our expenses are just under $12 million, which 3-month reserve would be $3 million as opposed to 2.7. I think the fact that that number is sort of a number we've been working with year after year, as you're looking at the 3 years we have here, more appropriate number, if we are looking at maintaining a 3-year reserve, is probably more in the range of $3 million as opposed to the $2.7 million. So I just wanted to bring that discussion up because I don't know where that 3-month reserve came in. That was a policy set a long time ago.
Yeah, that's what we've been going with, the 3-month reserves. But when I look at the how that calculation runs, I'll take a look at the operation budget, and I'll take out certain items of capital nature. Because again, if we needed that reserve, I'm looking more at the operation. So if we have $1 million in trucks, I might take that out of what our 3-month operating reserve would be. Because those things you can put aside. You can't put aside gas for cars, but you could put aside, you know, purchase of larger capital items. So I use expenses of approximately $11 million in calculating that reserve. When we're, you know, pretty close to that, 11 million 9. So that's how I go to that calculation.
Because essentially the streets would include the equipment, so if we were to back out large amount of the equipment.
If you were to back out a large, and really a lot of the capital equipment. So I pared it down in what I use to approximately $11 million versus the 11.9 or 12 million, yes.
Okay, thank you. And the only other thing I wanted to point out, I did this probably my 2nd or 3rd year as treasurer, so it was probably about 2009 or so. I went through sort of an accounting 101 in terms of fund balance versus cash, because one thing we see, $2.7 million ending fund balance. If you look at the monthly reports that I provide to you, I also provide you with the cash balance. And in the general fund, if you look at the cash balance, our cash balance is always typically about $1.5 million lower than the fund balance. So even though we're showing a fund balance of $2.7 million, because a large amount of that is represented by receivables money due us from others, we don't have $2.7 million in the bank with which to pay our bills. We have about $1.5 million less, or in this case, it would be about $1.2 million. It was never a problem in the past because we always had excess funds in the capital improvement fund. We were sitting with quite a few dollars there. But now as you're looking at the projection over the next 3 years and the depletion of the capital improvement fund as we continue doing capital improvements, the cash in that fund is also going to decrease. So it's going to give us less cash available essentially to borrow. I think Alderman Delkey, a couple times, she asked me a question where on the monthly report, why was interest income a negative amount in the general fund for the particular month? Well, it was because we ran out of cash in the general fund, so we actually borrowed the money from the capital improvement fund, and we actually paid interest to the capital improvement fund for that. But once again, as we get to the third year, as we don't have that cash available in the capital improvement fund, cash will be tighter than the fund balance here indicates, because our cash balance is less than our fund balance. So that's more for the benefit of the newer aldermen. I wish, well, I wish Tom was here, but so I want to emphasize that more just for his benefit. But that's all as far as my opening comments.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything?
I just wanted to add in the memo that is presented to us that kind of recaps everything. I don't see where it's listing about the state, you know, what can happen to the state and what that amount might mean to Darien. I know it's been on Direct Connect, I think, before, but is that something we want to throw in here too?
Well, maybe you weren't here, I don't know, Mike made a comment that at this point, we're proceeding as if nothing is changing.
Correct,
and
but we
which is
should
what-
still make mention, because we did that verbally, right? So we should make mention of it in writing?
Well, the amount, last year when Governor Rauner presented his first budget, his proposal was to cut by 50% the amount that were allocated from state income taxes. That amount that we're receiving is approximately $2.2 million, which would reduce the amount we receive by about $1.1 million. That didn't go anywhere. He proposed a second budget today, and for some reason that proposal disappeared from it. So like I'm saying, as Brian's indicating, we're ignoring anything that might happen from the state at this point, but I think something is going to happen. But
Right.
that particular item seems to have been dropped from budget year 1 to budget year 2 at the state level.
Okay, so what we could do is maybe make sure it's in the memo, like give an update, maybe if
We can put it, we
think-
can mention that in the final budget memo. Obviously, this
Okay.
is the preparation for the discussions, and
Is it placeholder and then, you know, make sure that we address it? you
Yeah,
know,
'cause
next year?
even if it's that, as I indicated just previously, if it's not that, I'm guessing it's going to be something.
Because I think that, you know, to your point, and, you know, what was sent to us, a typical resident isn't, you know, I think it would be nice, because I would think a resident looks at this summary right away, and they might say, oh, well, whatever happened with that? So even though we know, and we know why we're not including it, it might be a good footnote.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Let's go to page 7, everybody. City of Darien revenue. Let's start with real estate taxes. We budgeted $1,645,000. We actually came in at $1,650,000, only about a $5,000 more. However, if you take a look at FYE 17, we're looking to go up to $2,160,448. And that's going to be the number going out for years 18 and 19 as well. If we go down to state income,
sorry, Alderman, can I just mention on the property tax levy, the reason, again, that went up this year and then the following year is basically what I'm calling the general levy debt payoff reimbursement, because the general fund fronted that money to pay down the debt early.
right.
So then that was not that took out of the general fund what we would normally transfer to the capital projects fund. So while that debt service fell off the property tax bill, we've included it now in the general levy in this. So when it looks like it's more, it is more in this fund, but
It's a wash.
It's a wash. It was subtracted out of the debt
Right.
fund.
And the reason we did that, the bond people wanted to refinance our bond for us, but since it was due in 3 years and we had the cash available, we were able to save a lot of their fees by just paying it out of the cash that we had available. So all we're doing is recapturing that cash that we've put out 3 years in advance at this point.
What did we save on that anyway? I can't remember.
On this particular one, approximately, their projections were about $7,000.
Okay.
It ended up about $25,000 by us doing it out of the cash as opposed to refinancing it and saving those costs.
Perfect. Thank you. So we go down to state income. Our budget was $2,186,000. We actually came in $22,000 higher at $2,208,000. Let's go down to local use. We budgeted $419,000. We actually came in at $478,000. Sales tax, we budgeted $5,260,000 for the city of Darien, and we actually came in at $71,000 more at $5,331,000. Video gaming tax, we budgeted 75,000, and we actually broke the $100,000 mark in that area. We're up to 103, 159. Replacement tax, flat. The big one is the municipal utility tax. We budgeted 1,207,000, but we actually only came in at 929,794, which is a shortage of 278,000. We went back and rechecked those numbers, and it's basically because of the cost of gas has really, really dropped, correct?
Yeah, natural gas. All the communities who have that as a revenue source have seen the same thing, the decline in the revenue this past year.
Exactly. Thank you. Under amusement tax, we budgeted 70,000. We actually came in $12,000 higher at 82,000. And then hotel motel tax, we budgeted 40 grand, and we actually came in at 53,404, an increase of about 13,000. Total of those numbers, we were budgeting, 11,114,535. We actually were $65,000 short, all because of the municipal utility tax. We came in at 11,049,550. So go down to licenses. We budgeted 131. We just came a little bit short at 128,500.
Well, actually, Ted, if I hate to interrupt you here,
Sure.
but there's a couple items in this category. Liquor licenses were already at $70,000 at January 31st, and this is projected at $64,000. So as Brian indicated before, these were sort of their best guesses at the time.
Perfect.
Some of these numbers have already changed, so that one's actually a little bit higher.
Thank you.
Contractor licenses down below, we're still projecting at 18,000, but that's only at about 12,000 through January, so I don't know whether we'll make that up, but that number will be pretty close. There's
Sounds
one
good.
we're already over on.
Thank you, Michael.
Hey, quick question?
Sure.
Looking at video gaming tax, obviously it's a new item in the last few years. Noticed in, fiscal year 15 was at 59.3. Fiscal year 16 it's at 75, and, we've just touched 103. But I'm looking and we're figuring at 100,000, out each year. What's the purpose for us coming, with that dollar amount?
I scaled that back only a tad because the hour change at the place in at Dottie's. They, as you recall, were operating from 7 in the morning. They've claimed if now they have to start operating at 11, they're going to lose some revenue. I don't know, but I went a little conservative on that.
Okay. Because it just seems like it's increasing as the years are going on. I was just curious. Okay. Thank you.
I think we'll see too, as more communities, more establishments have that. We'll see how that. There's only a finite pot of money for that, so we'll see how that pans out. So we stayed, I think, fairly conservative on that.
Thank you. Fines, fees, and permits. As under court fees, we budgeted 135,000. We actually came in $40,000 less at 95,000. Towing fees, we budgeted 55, came in 18 grand less at 38,000. Ordinance fees, budgeted 12, we came in at 15. The big one was building permit fees. We budgeted 35,000, but we actually came in at 140,529, an increase of 105,000, mostly because of the new hotel, Darien Point, and then Manning Woods. Telecommunications tax, we budgeted 850,000, and we came in at 743,352.
I'm sorry, Alderman, one point under
Yeah.
the building permits.
Yeah.
As the council's aware, the last few years, we've had a permit fee waiver where we haven't charged, for certain permits. We'll charge for reimbursables if we have an engineering fee or things, or something like that, but that's total about $20,000 this past year. So that's 20,000 of revenue that we gave up by, offering the free permit.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian. Telecommunications tax, again, we're down 107,000 in that. And is that number pretty accurate so far?
Yeah, we have checked around and we see that trend around the area again. And the Illinois Government Finance Officers Association is reporting, area-wide, that's probably the effect of a lot of people losing their home phones. They're not having their landlines anymore, and they're using strictly cell phones, which would cut down on the number of landlines. Now, there should be some equivalent there or some washing because of the more cell phones. But at this point, again, most of the communities are seeing that revenue's reduced slightly.
Okay, sounds good. Cable TV franchise, budgeted $374,800. We came in $47,000 higher at $422. Nightcore franchise fee, $28,000. We actually came in at $17,845.
That's another effect of the reduced gas prices,
Gotcha,
natural gas prices.
Thank you. Public hearing fees, $5,000. We actually came in at $11,500. an increase of 6,500. Engineering and engineering fees for reimbursements, 42,400. We actually came in at 65,000, and that's 22 grand increase in that.
And that's, at January, that's already at 74,000. so that's
74,
another
sounds
number
good.
we're a
That's
little
about the
higher on.
asset. Thank you. As we go down to the subtotal in this area, so far we're running budgeted at 1,663,000, and with those other increases, that's going to push us over 1,700,000, if my math is correct. Let's go to page 8. Other, excuse me, under other income, our water fund share budget is 250, came in the same amount. As we go down to rents for the towers, we budgeted 283, and we have a number of 280,000. How accurate is that going to be, the 280?
That should be on. I mean, we have a spreadsheet of all the towers and the rental revenues we have in, so that should be right on.
Okay, perfect. Under other reimbursement.
Paul, I'm sorry, I don't know that anybody has dropped off the tower since we've done our estimate. I don't believe so.
Under other reimbursements, we budgeted 48,000. We actually came in 12 grand higher at 60,000. Reimbursements for rear yard as well as concrete reimbursement was 14,700 and 17,620. Again, this is a wash. We show it as revenue here, but it's the cost and the same on the back end. So we go down to miscellaneous revenue. Here's the big one. We anticipated 20,000, but we came in at 504,500. And that's the 484,000 that we collected in property taxes for the bond after April of 2015.
Yeah, once again, that number through January is 516,000, so it's a little bit higher. We had the bond, and you also have some other miscellaneous revenue that runs through there, some nominal amount to make up
Gotcha.
the difference.
So again, as we look down at the total revenues, again, the budget was 13,526,000, and we're going to be coming in at least 14,000, not 10,000. I'm sorry, 14,000, 14 million, probably 35,000, somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's going to be pretty close. There's not a big difference in those, some up, some down. I did have one question more for Brian, I guess, at this point. In the fiscal 18 forecast, Brian, for the sale of equipment, we've typically been projecting about $5,000 a year, and in 18 we have $35,000. Is that for?
Squad cars.
Squad cars,
Yeah, we're
okay.
planning on purchasing those years,
thought
so we'll have
I
some
just
more
wanted to make
yeah,
sure
we'll
we
have
had
some
the
more
thought
to sell.
process. Okay.
Sounds good. Any questions so far? Brian?
I don't know if you want, at this point, Ted, to talk about the property tax and how we levy for the police pension fund or our general levy. I don't know if you want to tackle that now or just so everybody understands
You want to go ahead?
that part. Yeah, you want to, Mike?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. In the past, this is probably a good refresher for the aldermen as well. Those of you that have been here a few years know that when we levy our real estate taxes, we always have to get that levy in by December of well, this past December, we put in our levy for this coming year that starts May 1st for us. When we do that levy, we basically, for the last several years at least, have been levying for the same dollar amount. So basically that amount was approximately $2.3 million per year we've been levying, and we've been levying the same dollar amount. What that means is that if the assessed valuation of your house, which we have no control over, that's handled at the Downers Grove Township at the assessor's office, but if the assessed value of your house worked out the same and we're levying the same dollar amount, the taxes that you would be paying to the city of Darien should be the same dollar amount year after year. Those amounts change, they go up and down because some of us get reassessed by the township, some a little bit higher, some a little bit lower, different reasons, but there shouldn't have been a dramatic change in any person's real estate taxes for purposes of Darien. And Darien, our real estate taxes are broken down into two components, the police pension as well as the general levy. So there's two pieces to it that make up that total of the $2.2 million. It's broken out separately because the amount levied for the police pension gets direct deposited in the pension fund. In the old days, it used to come through the city first, and then the city would have to transfer these funds. This is a more direct way. We approve what the amount is based on our actuary calculating it every year. We approve what that amount is, but this way it goes directly, when the people pay their taxes, it directly goes into the pension fund, so it shortcuts leaves us out as the middleman and gets those funds directly and immediately deposited into the pension fund so they can start earning in their fund also. I think what you're talking about here is what we've done in the past, since we've left our total amount levied the same, and yet the police pension fund, as well as other items, have continued to go up every year. As those items increase and we're levying the same dollar amount, there's less fund balance, there's less cash available in the general fund for purposes of transferring to the capital improvement fund and doing other things. So essentially, we've been absorbing that and trying either to adjust our expenses or reducing the amount that we're actually contributing to the capital improvement fund. So one of the thoughts here is, I mean, this year we had over a $200,000 increase based on the actuarial calculation of the amount needed to put into the police pension fund. So essentially that's $200,000 less we had in the general fund for purposes of transferring to the capital improvement fund. So essentially, again, we've been absorbing that in prior years, so that would be one thought, that whatever that increase is, that we, we take a look at that increase and at least increase our levy by an amount at least to absorb the full amount of the increase in the pension. As you know, we're allowed to only fund the pension at 90%. Since I've been here, I've always fought, and you guys have always agreed, and I appreciate that. We have been funding it at the 100% level. If our obligation is 100%, I believe we should be funding it at 100%. I don't want to end up in the same situation the state of Illinois has, and you've graciously been good enough to allow for that. But as a result of that, we've had less money in the general fund for purposes of transferring to the capital improvement fund. So again, one part of the thought process would be if we still need to generate these funds, which obviously we do once we get to the third year for purposes of capital projects, at least increase the levy to make sure we're at least absorbing whatever increases we have in our pension obligation.
So I don't think there needs to be that. I don't think the council needs to answer that. I wanted to explain it, but I think after you go through all the expenses and see, you know, if there's any expenses in there you want to change, I think that's a good time that, as Alderman Schauer mentioned, we'll go back and recap if the council wishes for more revenues. We talk about those at that time, but I know the property tax, we just wanted to explain that.
Yeah, now we can't do anything for purposes of the levy we've generated for this coming year, so that amount we've already approved. So it would be for the following year. It would be for what people are paying in 2017 that we would be looking at this point, just so everyone's clear on that.
But if what you're saying, if after we do all this and then we have, you know, our expenses go down, or, you know, however the end of the funding balance works, at that point, we might be able to adjust the future years based on if we think that that's something that we should levy for more in the further years. See, right now, we're flat with the amount of taxes.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, after the end of this discussion, when we go through fiscal year 17, you know, we can see how our final adjustments
Exactly.
happen,
Right.
and then we
Yeah.
can
Exactly.
decide if we even want to put a placeholder going forward.
Right, you can do that.
up
And,
that
yeah, and
or
again,
not.
we have till
Yeah.
later in the year, but if we
Right.
see that there is a need for it and the council agrees with that type of a concept, yeah, we can adjust those amounts for purposes of the budget, which would increase the amount you have transferring to the capital improvement naturally.
So what you're saying is you're seeing the actuary making recommendations similar to what they made this year?
No,
possibly in the
as far as where the amounts are gonna come in next year, it's hard to tell, because last year there was a change in actuarial assumptions.
Lost a
They
percent.
actually assumed that the retired officers would live longer. So that means there's more of an obligation. Actually, if they live another 5 or 10 years, that's more years that you have to fund for. So there was a change by the state law that caused that trigger. This year, it's possible that since we're already adjusted for that maybe there isn't
Maybe it
an
won't be the
increase.
same.
But on the other hand, you see what's going on Wall Street too, with the ups and downs. And as I reported, not at last night's meeting, but at the prior meeting, our year-to-date performance, while we're projecting a 7% return that we use for actuarial calculations, it was essentially break even through the first 8 months of the year. So it's going to be very difficult to make our 7% return this year. I'm hoping for some positive return, but we will probably have a shortfall based on the return. How that works out in the actuarial calculations, we won't know until the actuary actually works with the numbers, probably sometime by June or July.
Okay.
And again, we'll be getting into that discussion as soon as we get through the entire budget, so.
And I guess I wanted to just throw this out for some of the residents that have a trouble understanding what we're talking about as far as, you know, we've been levying the same amount as the city, but our city line items are only one little piece of what you see on your tax bill. So while we're maintaining, there's a lot of things that are still going up, and that's why, some residents don't understand. They think, their taxes went up a lot, what happened? And it's like, well, we're trying to be, we're responsible, but we need to keep being responsible. And even if other entities are raising theirs, I don't want to look at them and say, well, they're raising their, we got to do every little bit we can. So I just wanted to explain that for some residents that think, well, what are you talking about? You haven't done any raises, you haven't raised anything. My taxes went up, so many percent.
A lot of people don't look at their tax bill on a line-by-line basis. And what are we, Brian? What do we say, about 3.5%?
About 3.5%, yeah,
The city,
3.5%. And every year, in every town I've ever worked in, when the tax bills go out, the city manager gets calls asking why their taxes went up, and it's the same explanation. You really have to look at each line item and compare it.
The county's got a great thing on their website. You can go, you
Yeah.
can go to the county site, and it'll break it down, and it'll show District 61 and 43, or Downers Grove, District 99 and 27, library district, the whole, it's a great breakdown.
By
Yeah.
dollars and percent,
Yeah.
it is really helpful.
People who look at their tax bill on a line-to-line basis do appreciate the city of Darien for what they get, for what they pay. They do. People that I talk to that actually look at it, but then I've been in meetings with people who want to know why their taxes are so high, why living in Darien is so expensive. And I tell them it's not the city of Darien, it's the services related. It's the schools, the park district, DuPage County, the township, things like that.
Okay. Alderman Chow, quick
Yes.
question. Other reimbursements, we see a drop of 48,000 for fiscal year 16, and we have item for fiscal year was 15 was 134. Do we know why the drop? And then and I'm looking at residential concrete reimbursement. We're figuring out at 35,000 in year 18, but we've got 5,000 all the way across the board.
Well, the concrete, Joe, I think
That's
you're
sale
up.
of equipment.
Yeah, you're up one line. We budget for
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, for just on that though, we do budget 0 in revenue and expense, and then that ends up washing out. The larger reimbursement for the previous year was again a one-time reimbursement, and I believe it might have been a refund on one of either our liability or our health insurance, or there was some one-time refund we received there.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to page 9, and let's go through the city council budget. Briefly, our salaries were $42,750, and that's what we came in at. Cable operations, we budgeted $12,500, and we're coming in at $800. Is that number accurate?
Yeah, there was primarily the cable equipment that we were looking at purchasing. We had some other consultants come in. It really is not necessary for the equipment. There's some other things that we can do that will work. And that, again, that equipment change was really to make it easier to run the meetings in the back, but we're holding off on that.
Okay. And then consulting services, 25 grand. We came in at 15, short of 10.
Yeah, that was, I have to go into the budget here. Which line, I'm sorry?
Consulting professional
Under contractual services, consulting professional services. Third from the bottom, approximately.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll just have to go into my detail.
That's fine.
and
Just
find
just want to make sure.
That was the DuPage Senior Citizens,
that's
where we
what it
cut
was.
it from
Yeah.
20,000 to the 10,000.
Okay.
There was a $10,000 savings there.
Gotcha. Thank you. So total expenditures, we budgeted 101,799, and again, we came in 76,599. Let's go to page 10. Let's start going through it line by line. Okay. All right.
Ted, I guess as we get into this, we did have a discussion at one of our meetings as to how we're going to handle the voting on retaining or changing any of the items here. Are you proposing any changes to the way we usually handle it?
How do you guys want to do it this year?
Well,
Refresh my memory. I know he
Okay,
and
well, I brought up the topic, and Joe will certainly remember when John Podorowski was here, and we were having financial struggles a little bit in 2009, I believe it was. where instead of just taking a look at this and saying, okay, do you see anything you have a problem with? Do you want to cut, or otherwise, let's just move on? And Alderman Podorowski at the time had a suggestion, instead of just doing it that way, that we look at all the items, particularly the discretionary items, and require at least 4 votes, at least 4 positive votes to keep the item in, as opposed to just automatically assuming it was in there. And as a result of that, I think we got a lot of good discussion about various items. It did make the meetings go a little bit longer, but I think we got a lot of good discussion, did result in some cuts. I don't think we've added a lot back since then, but it may be a way of forcing people to look at things a little bit more individually as opposed to the big picture total here. But again, we discussed that at our preliminary meeting, and I wasn't sure whether you were proposing any change on that or wanted to.
And I think for those meetings, we probably had 7 aldermen, which, you know, the math worked out,
Yeah.
4 out of the 7. When you're running light,
I was about
it's
to
just a little
say,
bit
we should,
different.
if we're gonna do it, we gotta do it with 3,
5, so,
exactly.
yeah.
Okay, so I have no problems with it, it's up to what does everybody else decide here?
Fine.
Okay, so 3 votes tonight to keep everything in, okay, perfect. Let's start at operating, 12-4205. Discretionary of $1,000, $500 for Making a Difference Day, and then $500 for the holiday decorating contest. What is, what is Make a Difference Day? I cannot remember what that is.
Go ahead, Paul.
Every year, the city gets some volunteers through typically the high school, and they go out and they'll rake the leaves for the seniors, and we provide the bags and some drinks for the students.
Okay, I'm in. Everybody else? Okay, fair enough. Let's move down. 12-4213, dues and subscriptions, $18.50, $100 to the Illinois Municipal Clerk Association, and then $17.50 for the Illinois Municipal League membership. We have this membership every year, correct?
The Clerks Association?
Both that as well as,
The
Munis-
Clerks Association is annual.
Yeah.
The Illinois Municipal League is a new item that's being requested, and there's some backup information in the packet, or in the budget on the IML. So, you know, the Illinois Municipal League is a council of governments, similar to DuPage mayors and managers, except it's statewide. And it's a very good organization for really a little bit amount of money. And they have an excellent website, excellent resources. If there's training available, and either the elected officials or staff goes, there's discounts on training. And again, it's a voice. They speak on behalf of municipalities. So if we're not in that, we're not members now, we could still go on their website. We still benefit because they're lobbying for all the municipalities. But their executive director had contacted me, I don't know, several weeks ago, and I talked to Mayor Weaver, and she thought it would be good also to have some organization that we can be involved in and have input in. So if I call Illinois Municipal League now as a non-member, really it's kind of meaningless, although they're a good group. But if you're a member, you have a little more input into the organization and maybe what they're pushing and more information you're getting from Springfield. The information I got today, I sent to Treasurer Corrin. You know, they follow the state issues very closely. They watch the budget message, and they sent us information about, you know, today analyzing the budget message. Again, it's just an organization for the $17.50. It's a good value.
okay. That's 1 vote for me. Anybody else? 2? All right. Let's leave it in. Let's go over to 12-4239, Darien logo merchandise. We always buy $500 worth every year.
Alderman, I'm sorry, did you hit or did I miss it, the holiday decorating contest?
Yeah, we approved it.
You did, okay, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I missed it.
And you just skipped over the liability insurance. I did have a question on that on 4219.
Go
I
ahead.
think, Alderman, you're hitting the discretionary more, is that what
I-
you're trying
As I
okay.
said,
Right.
I said, maintenance I will not stop on unless you
Yes.
guys have a question, so
Okay,
please.
well, I do have a question. Just last year, we were at $7,428 we
Yeah.
budgeted, and we're actual 7,109, but it's cutting way back.
Yeah, the dollar amount's not changing when you look at the overall budget. We just have allocated it now based on each department's expenses.
Okay.
And so that's the reason.
12-4239, Darien logo merchandise, $500. We always buy this every year.
Yeah, there's things we have, you know, Darien merchandise typically. One year, you know, we had small baseballs made or footballs, and the kids come in and we give those away, or just different things, you know, small tokens or giveaways.
When we added the Citizen of the Year pin, was that under this account?
I would have to check where we charge that. I don't remember,
The
that might
Citizen
have
of the
been,
Year, that's $6,000. I think that's under administration.
So the pins
yeah,
went
the
under
pins
that?
might have been under
the pins, oh,
contingency,
okay.
because we didn't plan those last year, so we would have to check where specifically we had purchased those.
In this small amount, isn't we got an issue with it? Okay. Let's move down. 12-4263, training and education. We have $1,000 under discretionary, but nothing listed.
It's $100 per council
Yeah,
member.
training,
Right.
yes, yes, this was several years ago. There was some
Quite a bit.
discussion about what training the alderman would like to do, and the alderman talked about different numbers. So if you want to go to municipal training, so it ended up, we put $100 in.
For each alderman.
Basically, yeah, there's a couple hundred
Each
more
council
dollars
member.
Each
for all-
Council member? Okay.
all the elected officials, but there's,
We haven't really used it the last several years,
Yeah.
however.
Yeah, I've not taken a class in the 3 years I've been here. Just saying.
In 1 year.
But with that said, with the $1,000 in there for the training and education, as far as the Municipal Clerks Association is considered, that's the same, that money comes out of that account. It's not something special. I'm allowed $100 like everybody else on the council.
yeah, all the
Under this
elected
account.
officials, right.
But, so should it be
Above
in the
and
two
beyond,
places, I guess?
yeah, it's above and beyond the membership.
I
Is that what you're
never
asking?
took anything other than $100, because I pay the rest out of my pocket for
Yeah, but we-
meetings and for
But we
other
didn't have this in there
associations.
before. This is something new.
Well, no,
but
the-
we
the-
limited it to $100.
I'm sorry,
per
Joanne, you're
person.
asking-
Yeah, I'm misunderstanding, because under dues and subscriptions, that should be the $100 that I'm allotted, that's the 1,000 over here.
Well, isn't there an association fee with that for us to join the Clerks Association?
Anything above my $100 I pay out of my pocket. I
Well-
thought it comes out of
Thought that
training and
100 came out
education.
of that.
Okay.
Otherwise, it looks like you've got it
Well, what-
listed twice.
Okay, under the dues and subscriptions, it should cover the membership for you to join the Clerks Association, and then under training, you have an additional $100 for seminars or whatever the clerks' meetings you might go to.
I haven't been doing that, though.
Now you
I-
should.
All right, guys, why don't we leave it in like we always have, okay? And if we don't use it, we don't use it, but let's just continue to leave it in, okay? And that, going back to that discussion, that, we'll talk about that, Joanna. Let's go down to 12-4325, consulting professional services, senior tax subsidy, 2,000. Michael, did you have a question?
No, I didn't know.
No, I don't like hearing it, well, we haven't used it, let's just keep it in.
Well, the question is, if we're not gonna use it, we're not spending it. But we have the option in case we do. That's what I'm thinking.
But can we put it, I mean,
All I can
what's,
say is, if you've ever, I just don't have the time, otherwise I would totally take advantage of this.
I would
Their
too.
programs are amazing. You know, you come out of there and it's really refreshing. It's a good networking thing too. You meet a lot of other, government people, and I would recommend it if you had the time.
so let me ask a question, if we didn't have that in the budget, and then somebody wanted to take training, is there another avenue we can go to take no?
If it's important enough, they can pay it themselves. I go for continuing education every year, certain things, and
Well, I do too for my license.
When I was first elected, we used to do this more often,
Yep.
years ago, but we stopped doing it
There,
after a
there
while.
was more, I think when the city belonged to Mayors and Managers Conference, there was probably more training.
We used to go down
There's certainly
to
a,
Springfield every year.
echo what Tina said, there's a lot of really, really good training. Illinois Municipal League has a full seminar, they have, the weekend in September, and they have
So-
classes for newly elected officials. So every council member's different in terms of what time they have available, how they want to train. But
So for your $1,750 for the Illinois Municipal League, that we become membership to, is there any training that's involved with that, that we wouldn't need the $1,000 for special training on the next page?
You get discounts from, I can't tell you the training, because there's a wide variety of the training.
Okay.
Some of it would be available for free. I could tell you, you can go on the website and read all the materials from the IML conference, which is really good training, but that wouldn't cover additional seminars to go to.
Let's take a vote on it. Who would like it in? Okay. Let's go down to 12-4325, senior tax subsidy, $2,000. That's the number we use every year.
Correct.
All right, what's everybody's thoughts on this?
How much is that used?
We go through the two every year.
Through it? Okay.
Right, Paul? We go through that too. I think one year we actually asked, we had a small supplement, so it's certainly used.
So it's, okay. I have no problem with that.
Most of the people, it's all in Darien, correct?
Our,
Darien residents,
yeah,
sorry.
it's countywide, different municipalities are involved in that, but for our 2,000, it's for Darien residents.
All right, quick vote. Everybody in? Okay, keep it in. Let's go down to 12-4366, trolley contracts, $300 for the Halloween party and $300 for the holiday lights tour. Any issues or questions?
Holiday party, yeah, is simply for the Lions holiday party, we provide the bus service.
Okay.
And the holiday lights tour is what we spend to the school district now, who does the, who drives the buses for the tours.
Okay.
So, Joe, you really enjoyed your emceeing on those, right?
Those buses are packed, and
Okay.
you know, and I don't. It's a small token. So yeah.
I just had a hard time emceeing with the way he drove the bus.
Beg your pardon?
With the way he drove the bus.
All right, let's keep them in.
I wasn't driving this time.
12-4815, 2 tablets under equipment for $1,600.
Yeah, now that the aldermen have tablets, I don't believe all the aldermen took tablets. Some use their own, but we put in there in case we needed to replace a couple of the tablets, or in case an alderman decides they would want a tablet next year.
I'll give mine back. I hate it.
Tell me what you really feel, Joe. Come on.
Hate it.
Okay. All right, let's move on to administration department budget, please. That's page 20. Okay. Under costs, let's start. Salaries, $457,000. We came in at $439,577, a drop of $18,000. Under benefits,
Hey, Brian, just if we can stop here for just a second. We're comfortable with that number because we're at 339,000 through January 31st. We still have 3 months.
Which one, the 439?
The salaries, right, the gross
Yeah,
salary.
yeah, we checked that today, and that's on target. When we budgeted, we had different staffing upstairs, so that should be the number.
Thank you.
under benefits.
I'm sorry, for the 464,384, that's a 1.5% increase over the 16 budget. Is that how the math worked, or is it going to end up exactly what the actual is? I don't know.
Well, we take a look at what we've paid in payroll to date, and we look at how many remaining payrolls, and we get the current year number. And when
Okay.
we're looking forward, we just take the employees at their salaries, we plug that into the spreadsheet, and it calculates the new salary.
So through the steps or something, or?
Yeah, we have,
Okay.
yeah, there's,
Okay.
and this really applies citywide. We have a step system for both union and non-union. So Maria's an example who started more recently. She would be part of that step system. Somebody like Paul is already at the top of the step system, so their increases will be different throughout the year. And this contemplates for the Public Works Union 1.75% increase. In the non-union staff, we also follow that, and the police have different step system based on the recent contract.
Okay. Under benefits, our budget was $187,000. We're coming in at $176, about $10,000, a little bit less than, or I'm sorry, a little bit more than $10,000. Those numbers are going to still be accurate across the board, correct?
Yeah, we are making some adjustments to the health insurance that'll be adjusted in each department, but the overall will not change.
Okay.
There's, maybe some charged, we charge, a couple employees are charged different percentages in budgets, so it'll change, but it'll be even.
Sounds good, thank you. Under operating costs, the two is liability insurance. We budgeted $65,000. We're going to actually come in at $45,000. Legal notices, we budgeted $8,000. We're going to come in about $3,800. So we go all the way to the bottom. Our subtotal for that section, we budgeted $254,000, and we're actually going to come in at $225,000. Under contractual services, the big one is consulting professional services. We budgeted $96,850, and we're going to come in at $85,000. For a subtotal of that entire area, $135 is what we budgeted, but we're going to come in at $123. And for our total expenditures for the administration department, we budgeted $1,034,000. We're going to come in $69,000 less at $965,519. The only thing that I wanted to highlight on this page is if we go to FYE 18, under the line is, I'm sorry, is that consulting professional services? Thank you. Is $119,800. $119,850, and that is going to be for the new Microsoft update in FY 18, correct? From what I
Yeah,
remember?
we're still, we've plugged that in, and we're looking at talking with our computer consultants now. We may be able to push that off a year or two, but at this point, we don't have a definitive answer, but we did want to plug that in.
Okay, sounds good.
Alderman, real quick.
Yes.
I know one of our previous aldermen asked this question last couple of years. Under training and education, I see actual fiscal year 15 is at $873. Yet we keep budgeting, $6,000, $4,000, $7,000. Why do we keep budgeting higher amount of dollars if the training's not being used?
Yeah, this
Question?
particular year, looking for 7,000, there's a couple of things in there that are specific. Paul's looking at some classes. I'm looking at the statewide Illinois City Managers Association conference. Again, the statewide conference. Those are known numbers we plugged in. And again, it's the training has been difficult where we'll contemplate certain classes and then the classes come, and if we get tied up, we have not used those. So we're trying our best to use the training, and we just have not used all the training. I think that 800 was particularly low also the year before.
It's higher this year. Is that 4,000 accurate then?
Yeah, I think that, we've kept the base in, and we've raised that primarily for the classes Paul was contemplating taking and for the,
We're at 2,700 through January.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, let's go to page 21, everybody. Let's start at operating 10-4213. Discretionary of $4,090. Let's just go through them real quickly. Books and publications for 1,000.
Last year was only 100 on that. Why? What's the purpose to that big increase on that?
The books and publications.
Books and publications?
was it 100 last year, Mike?
Yep.
I'll have to dig up the
100 in the
detail
budget
here.
last year.
You can go to the next one. It'll just take me a minute here to.
ICMA membership, $1,400.
Yeah, that's the National City Management Association membership for myself.
Yeah.
One
Did you
person.
cut, last year it showed 2 of them for 2,000. This year, I assume it's just 1 for 1,400?
Yes.
Okay. 2 ILCMA for 600.
Last year, there was just 1 for 350.
Yeah, and then Paul and I both will have a membership in that.
Will 600 be enough?
Yeah, that's a much,
Okay.
it's a smaller and cheaper organization.
2 ILG FOA members, 350.
Go ahead, Paul. I'm looking at the other, if you want to grab those questions.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
ILGFO.
for Marie and I.
Okay.
That's the Government Finance Officers
Illinois
Association.
Government, yeah, that's the Illinois Government Finance Officers.
Notaries, 160.
It's cut back from 300 from last year, which probably makes sense. I know we had quite
No,
a
no, no,
discussion about
notaries,
that last year.
exactly.
Who's the notary?
There's a lot of notaries,
There's a
Oh,
couple
there's
here and there's
several of 'em.
some on the other side, police side too, right?
quite a few, and quite a few over here too, I
Okay.
believe.
IPELRA, 205.
Paul, what is that?
Public, that's the Public Employee Labor Relations. That's the association, the state association for personnel managers. And Paul has a membership to that.
Okay.
Mike, there's no reason for that. The only thing I could think of, that should still be $100, so we'll change that under
Okay.
books and publications.
Ah, finally got one.
G-
That's 900. Yeah.
GFOA, 375.
100 times 3.
That's the Government Finance Officers Association, one member.
So we're going to change books and publications down to 100.
Wait a
Wait,
second.
what
Paul,
was-
Paul, what did you, GFOA last year? We did not have that 375 in there.
And what's the difference between that and the membership?
Yeah. And
Between that and what?
The GFOA, for
One's the,
375?
The GFOA is the Governmental Finance,
Oh,
Government
one's-
Finance Officer.
So that's
And
different
one's
from
the
the members?
Illinois,
I'm sorry.
and the other one is
One's
Illinois.
national.
One's
one
Illinois,
state.
gotcha.
Correct.
but last year we did not have the GFOA in there. It's something we're adding this year.
Illinois.
No, it's been paid every year. It might not have been.
I don't think we probably
properly
didn't break it
classified.
out, Mike, but we're
Well, we've been
members.
part of that for years. Okay.
All right, so we're going to change that to 100. Everybody in favor, let us know. Raise your hand.
That's fine.
Thank you. Let's move to page 22. 10-4219, $300 for the wellness fair. Any issues on that? Okay. Let's go down to 10-4239, public relations.
If I could back up, 4223, I know this is in maintenance.
That's right.
In maintenance, 4223, the fire alarm sprinkler monitoring. Last year, we had 1,400 budgeted, this year 500. We comfortable we got the right number there? We're down by
It's in
900.
maintenance, with the, under Public Works.
Okay.
We'll have to check that. I don't know, it's showing in administration. I don't recall it, Mike, without looking at my detail.
Right,
If
we took it out, we put it in Public Works.
The whole thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
So this,
So we
this
would take that
500
out.
should come out also then?
the 500 should stay in there,
This is
That's-
in admin?
yes. And that was more specific for a light, for example, an emergency light, or what, really, it doesn't matter if it's in here or it's in the other one.
I agree.
We're just trying to break it out a little more, if you want to say. But again, we're comfortable by taking it out and putting that 500 back into the into Public Works building.
Oh, I don't care where it's at, as long as we're
Yeah,
comfortable with
I'm
the
gonna,
amount, because last
I'm
year
gonna
was
move
a...
it back with Dan, so there's, he's
In
had
one
taken
place,
most of
yeah.
the building maintenance. It'd be best
Yeah.
to go back there.
It's easier in one place, it's probably...
Can we
Yeah.
take the 500 and put it back in Public Works then?
Yes.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Last year, it's not for you, it's for legal services. Last year, it looks like we budgeted $15,000 in last year's budget, and the legal services for $25,000. Do we know what the breakdown is?
Paul, if I'm not mistaken, we moved the legal services from the council's budget
Yes.
into the admin budget before we had it. And it really became just a waste of time to break those out between the council, directed attorney fees and what we have, because they're really all the same.
Okay.
So we've,
So the number's the same, it's just not
yeah,
broken down.
it's
into
broken out, and I'm
spots.
gonna check that under, Paul, you just look at elected officials, make sure we did put that to 0. I'm sorry.
Anything else, or should we wait?
Yes, that's correct.
Joe, anything else on that?
No, I'm good.
Let's go down to 10-4239.
Sorry to do this to you again, Ted. Account 4225, generator maintenance fuel, $1,500. I see a similar amount under streets account 4223. Are we just splitting that between the two? Let's see. Streets, 4225.
We'll check that number, and if it's a duplicate, we'll take it out, and if it should be in Public Works, we'll move it over. I know we have a couple generators. I don't think you have anything in Public Works, right, Dan?
So, not at Public Works specifically, though, there's one here, one at the police department, and then obviously the water plants, which are
Yeah.
separated from the
Right.
building.
Anything else in that area, Michael? Okay.
Nope, not there.
All right. Public relations, 40,500.
Wait
Okay.
a minute. 4235, printing and forms, we're budgeting 4,200. Last year, we had 3,000, and current year, we're under budget on that. We're under as of January 31st. Yet we're increasing it by $1,200, the printing and forms, 4235. Last year, we had 3, we went to 42, and this year, we're at 1470 through January.
I could tell you the makeup of that is our general checks are 2,200. The W-2s tax forms, which I don't know if we had that broken out last year, it was 400. Business license printing 600. Handicap stickers at 200, and letters, envelopes at 800. So that's the makeup.
All right.
And, okay,
Anything else?
not yet.
Okay. Now let's go to public relations, 40,500. We'll start with Neighbors Magazine, 13,000. Postage for Neighbors is 12,000. Let's take those two right off the bat.
So, first of all, the magazine is up 3,000 from 10 to 13 this year.
Right, and we talked about, we had a discussion on that, right, with how we're gonna help
Well,
maybe that magazine?
yeah, the most recent report we have is the magazine was doing better the last 2 publications. So it's looking like, we'll be fine, or he will be fine in terms of the advertising. That's picked up. Paul, I don't know if there's anything else why that would have gone up?
No.
You know, when I look at how we look at other items that are much, much cheaper and how we debate them, and then I look at $25,000, I'm looking at the cost benefit of this, especially with the problems we've had. I mean, we debate $1,000 for stinking training, and here's $25,000. And what, I mean, that's a lot of money. And what are we really getting out of that? I know the public, people like that, but for what, 4 times a year?
Yeah, the council had this discussion
We had it at
a
the goal
couple,
setting,
a couple of years ago and,
Yeah.
and talked at goal setting. And I think that the recurring issue is, it really is a great publication primarily that senior citizens might benefit from if they're not on the computer. And I think it boiled down to that. That was the discussions and what it boiled down to.
And I agree with you, but I know we talked about it at length at goal setting.
setting.
That's why wasn't bringing it up now.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it, and I know Mr. Sullivan talked about the improvements and what he needed. You know, it's a lot of money.
It is.
And you do hear complaints that it's, by the time I get it, it's already sort of outdated. I know that we've had a couple issues last
This
year
year
that
was
that became an
that was
issue.
big.
And beyond that, every resident in the Hinswood subdivision, which is not Darien, gets a copy of it.
We get a credit, Joe,
Yeah.
for,
You got a credit for that?
off the bill, yeah, there's a number of,
$172.
yeah.
Okay.
So is it fair to raise it 3,000 though?
I'm going to defer to Paul. Paul, we can bring that back. I think if he's on track, we can certainly, we'll double check that. But if he's, if the publisher is more confident in his ability to keep the price where it is, we can certainly lower that back to what we had last year.
Marie, can you check real quick? Because just in the last bill run, we just paid that, and I think the bill was maybe 3,400. If it's 3,400 times 6.
The public relations, right now, the total is 24,000.
No, for the last disbursement to Neighbors Magazine, was it Emerald Publishing?
Okay, you want me to look that up?
3145,
I'm sorry?
3,145, 27.
3145, because that's their typical bill, and if we did that times 6, comes out to just under 19,000.
I propose that with
Well, there's
these two,
postage and printing.
But
Right.
that's included in that
That's
bill. In this
included in
one, he incorporated everything again.
I
For a
prop-
period of time, we were breaking it out, but in the last one, you had those emails back and forth
Okay.
to you, and he said everything's fixed now, and that's why I asked what the last one was.
I propose with these two items, let's table them and let's discuss them for next week when we have a lot more people here and other aldermen, okay?
Yeah, we'll check that. We'll check those numbers too.
At goal setting, we did discuss adding 2 more pages at some point. I know we discussed it. I don't know if that number takes that into account and potentially
Well,
adding
it-
2 more pages.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about potentially adding 2 pages if we had to, because that would generate more revenue to keep the magazine going. If the magazine's going on its own and we don't have to add the 2 pages, then we certainly could reduce that number. We can,
And his current email that he sent Brian within the last couple of weeks said that the advertising seemed to be picking up.
it picked
I
up,
think, and so-
correct.
What about the July 4th fireworks contribution, that $8,000? I know if she was here, Sylvia would mention that. To me, that's still, considering the budget and the tightness of things, $8,000 is still $8,000 for a 6-minute or a 7-minute or 8-minute show. And to me, I feel that's a waste of money.
Yeah.
I know Kathy likes it, but
No.
it's $8,000 that can go somewhere else.
I think if you're looking at that 8,000 could get transferred to the capital improvement and help people with the streets or sidewalks or
I mean, I hate,
something
to-
along
you know,
those
and
lines.
again, I feel like I'm being a spoil sport here because people appreciate that, but it's $8,000.
Well, you look at, you're talking about being in deficit in year 3. So if you do, if you're saving $8,000 for 3 years, that's $24,000 if you do that consistently throughout the whole budget.
I agree that we could, what we're talking about, and I'm, definitely thinking about that too. But this is the one that we're tabling anyway, right? When all the other aldermen are here, so.
We're talking the neighbors, we're talking,
We're tabling this whole area?
I think, Ted, you mentioned the neighbors.
Talking about the neighbors.
Oh,
guys,
okay, I was
that's the
thinking the whole
neighbors.
account, okay.
I mean, if you definitely have 5 aldermen that are not interested in fireworks, there's no need to table that.
And if we could backtrack a little bit too, if you recall, again, when we were having financial challenges, we backed out of that. We did not contribute to that for 2 years. And Downers Grove and Woodridge both said, if you don't participate, we're not participating and it's going to be canceled. And yet they continued on with it for a couple years until the last 2 years, they've come back at us and said, well, we'd like you guys back in it. And then we did join it again. So it doesn't mean just because we're not participating that it won't happen. But if everybody else is going through the same thought process, it is possible that it does get canceled.
We're going to table this entire section for next week, okay?
Okay.
Let me make a note, please. Let's go to page 23. Training and Education, 10-4263, tuition reimbursement, $3,000, local training, $3,000, and ILCMA conference for $1,000.
The ILCMA is a new item this year.
Correct. Yeah, that was, Alderman Kenny had mentioned that. The ILCMA is the state conference for me that I'm proposing. I haven't attended previously for a number of years, but, and the local training is kind of our standard number, and then there's the tuition reimbursement. I know Paul's interested in classes, and I think there's a max of 1,000 or 2,000 a year per employee, so we have an additional 1,000 in there if anybody else is taking college tuition classes.
Are these numbers all accurate for what we're going to need for them? This total of 7?
Well, I know that they, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't exceed those, so if, you know, if anything, we would come under on local training again. As you saw, we've been under budget a couple of years on that, and we haven't gone to all the training, but we certainly wouldn't go over that.
Okay. Who wants to keep it in? Okay. Let's go down to 1042, 65, travel and meetings, association meetings, 500, and then mileage per staff for 300.
And the staff was included
The mileage is
Is
new
it
this year,
new?
too.
as a new item?
The mileages, then we just broke that out. We periodically will run primarily to the county. Staff members use their personal cars, and they'll run back and forth, typically, I think, filing information that's required to file at the county.
You had mileage last year,
What's
didn't
that?
they?
What's that?
They had mileage last year.
I don't see it.
The mileage, they had the
We had an
meetings, not the
account.
mileage.
We
There
had an
was a
account
line,
that was
but
zero.
there was a line, but no amount.
It was 500 last year.
No,
We
the
got 800
the
this year.
500 was the meetings.
Yeah. All right. This is last year's.
Okay.
Any issues with it?
I don't know.
Joe's got his budget last year. Looks like mileage.
It was in there as a 0.
It was in there, but it was under maintenance. That was the difference.
Okay.
No, I'm not showing it at all. The total we have in the budget there was 500 last year. Maintenance, discretionary. Not enough to worry about. It wasn't in
Keep
there
going.
last
All
year.
right. Does anybody have an issue with it? Joe, tell me what you feel,
I
bud.
was just clarifying, Alderman. I was just getting clarification, sir. Learning process.
Michael, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to go on to the next item.
Okay, hold on. Everybody want to keep it in?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go down.
Yep.
What was the next thing you wanted to bring up before we go down to the?
4267 telephone. I know it's under budget maintenance, but we're budgeting 60,000 currently through January. We're at 29,000. This seems like we're only halfway there through 9 months.
Which one, Mike? I'm sorry.
Telephone,
Phone.
the 4267. I
you
don't
know
know
which
what.
account
I-
out of those?
I
No?
don't know which
Okay.
one of them is higher or lower, but total year-to-date, we have 29,000 in the account, which would comprise all 3 of them.
Yeah, Marie will just have to look at that and see how many, if that accounts for the appropriate amount of months from the payment. We'll check that one.
It looks like we're okay. I mean, we're at 33,000 through today.
And last year you budgeted 64, so that's
We got with 2 months to go.
Right.
And that, no, we need December's bill. I'm sorry. January, February, March's, and April's bill. So 4 months, that's another 16 to 18,000.
Wait, we just paid November? Or wait, what did we just?
Correct. It looked like a November bill.
Do we need to go back and take a look at those numbers for next week or not?
No, I think we're fine with that.
It's hard to believe we're that far behind then. We're just paying November, though.
well, we are in Illinois.
Oh, jeez.
And we pay our bills on time, so that might have been, that probably came here late, because we would have paid it the normal course.
All right, well, we'll keep it at 60,500. If anything changes, would you please let us know for next week? Okay. 10-4330 under contingency for 10 grand. We use this number the same amount every year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have we used any of the
Where
contingency
we
this
at
year?
now?
Marie, can you, or Paul?
I think
can
we're
you
at
check that?
1666.
That's correct. 1666 as of February.
That's what I
What's,
thought I
what's
remembered.
1666 for? Just
1,600.
Mhm.
miscellaneous stuff, from what I remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if the Citizen of the Year pins were in there, Marie.
1,050 for Horticultural Specialist Inc. 516 for DuPage County Clerk's Office for the Comcast audit,
Oh, that's right.
and then a couple miscellaneous $100 items.
Do we typically run under that much on that item, year to year?
I would have to check and see. Let me check.
But we always use 10,000 just to be on the safe side, correct?
Always put 10 in, and yeah, we put 10 in, and that's really out of a $13 million budget. It helps for things that are unknown or they come up during the year that we may want to do, like lights on the clock tower that we didn't do, but we didn't do. But
Last year we used 3,880 of it.
Okay.
We'll just keep that number in then, everybody.
Okay.
10-4345, $1,000 for carpets to be cleaned.
Oh.
The only question that I have, and I just got to ask this, I thought we were getting carpets replaced. Which carpets are
Yeah,
we
which
cleaning?
That's going to happen in April.
yeah, we'll get them cleaned next year, though. I mean, throughout the year.
Okay, so that's for the following year afterwards?
Yes, right after. Yeah.
Okay.
And if we can back up 1 second, the janitorial contract, that last year was 16, we're increasing that to 18. Most of those janitor contracts stay pretty much the same. Have we gotten some notice about a renewal or an increase?
No, we're looking for actually a little bit increased service. So I've been getting some quotes out there, and it has increased a little bit dollar-wise, but the service level hopefully will be increased as well. We've had a little bit of complaints and some issues with that.
Okay. I won't ask what the complaints are. Let's, any other questions for that section? All right, let's move to page 25, everybody. Community development, is all set? Let me know when you're ready. Okay, page 25. Under expenses, we'll start with salaries. We came in at 289,000 versus a budget of 291, so we were short about $2,000, which is fine. Under benefits, we budgeted 106,000. We came at 103, so shortage about 3,000, which is still okay. So go down to operating costs. Okay, this is the big one. If we take a look under economic incentives, we budgeted 298,000, but we came in at 182,805. So everybody's saying, well, that's terrific. We came in short. That's phenomenal. It's really not, because it's all based on the Walmart and what Walmart produces. As everybody recalls, when Walmart comes into a town, they will turn around and they will put a deal together to get incentive back. They do this with every town that they go into. There's not one place in the state of Illinois, from what I remember, hadn't had some type of economic incentive. So as their sales increase, we will turn around and we will pay them back for any extra and overage that we're going to receive. The key on the whole thing, and I just want everybody to remember this at home, we collect almost $1 million in tax revenue guaranteed from Walmart every year. You guys want to expand on that a little bit?
Well,
It's not guaranteed.
But
If their
we got-
sales decrease for some reason, then tax could decrease, but.
Yeah, but when have we ever
I
came
think
in
what you're
less?
referring to, Alderman, is the
Not
agreement
really.
with Walmart stipulated that we'll maintain the base sales tax.
Right.
So, in terms of what goes to Walmart, it's revenue that they generate above and beyond the base that we use for the sales tax. So
It
we're,
was part
so-
of, wasn't it for the portion that they added on to?
well, it
Wasn't
was,
there
what it was is they didn't have a superstore there. They were looking at a couple other communities they were contemplating leaving. Dan pretty much roped them in for discussions in a meeting, and then ended up with, at the end of the day, we had a development agreement, so they would stay. and that, yeah, the development agreement stipulated that we'll maintain our base sales tax, because we just didn't want to give a 50-50 split of all their sales tax, because that might have put us under what, that might have actually gave us less revenue from Walmart, and nobody wanted that. So the agreement was to maintain our base sales tax revenue.
Brian, we're maintaining what, our base sales tax rate. Do we look at their figures? Do they share their figures in terms of what they're making above what they made before the expansion? Do we know that?
We have a base number of sales generated, retail sales generated, and there's a base number, and it all actually goes off of that number.
And we're required to keep it confidential, but several of us, I've seen the numbers, Paul, seen the numbers. They've authorized us to get the information from the state, so we're getting a direct reporting from the state, and the amount over that base is the amount that we owe them. We have not paid them currently. We're just trying to find out where they want us to send it. We've calculated the amount, and what is it, 114,000, Paul?
Correct.
So 114,000, which will be coming before the council very shortly on a warrant. But that's what we owe them from their first year.
Okay.
Can you remind me the timing of when the state gives us that information, or when
Well,
we get
they'll
these
give it
reports?
whenever we request it, but
Okay.
the agreement stated that it started running when they had substantial completion of the development, which I believe was started in May of 14, May or June of 14, Paul?
April of 14, we ran the numbers from, April of 14.
So we just request it.
So we have,
Well,
yeah.
actually, now there's an agreement with the state that the city council approved, where as the information becomes available, they'll send us a disc with all of the information on it, with all the sales tax from
We just review it once a
everybody.
year. We're just required to remit it to them once a year. And the numbers going into this current year, for the first 3 or 4 months, we're running a little bit higher than last year, which doesn't mean anything more for us, but it means we'll be able to pay them a little bit more toward our obligation.
Total expenditures in this area, 858, 445 is what we budgeted, and we came in at 737, 650. And again, that's mostly because of Walmart.
I'm going to back you up 1 second. Ted.
Sure.
The consulting professional reimbursement at 74,000, projected at 74. It's already at 90 through January, so we know we're a little bit over on that. And the question I have as we get into 17 and 18 fiscal years, the supplemental pension expense, there's no amount budgeted for the last 2 years on there. There's $3,600 current year and nothing in the last 2 years.
Okay, that should be 36 also.
Okay, let's go to page 26. Before I go to 4213, does anybody have any questions on the benefits, salaries, or operatings?
Sure, and I don't think I asked this question, I probably should have. Community development, who, on those salaries, who's are under those? Which part-
Mary, Michael, and myself.
All right. 20-4213, dues and subscriptions, $500 for APA membership. The same that we had last year, correct?
100 less?
Last year was 600.
Any idea why it's down 100?
Just reduced it based on the use.
Okay. Any issues? Let's go to page 27. Let's go to, again, we already talked about 20-4240 Walmart tax rebate, 175, and then the Home Depot tax rebate of 68,000. One last thing I want to say about Walmart, and just for a refresher for the people at home. Walmart owned that building from day one, even though the entire development's owned by somebody else. If we ever would have lost them, they would have shut that down, just as a reminder. Okay?
It would go black for 5 years.
5 years, you got it. So, anyway, I keep getting questions about the Walmart, and I just want to address that right now. All right, let's go to 20-4263, $600 for staff and conference training.
Last year was 300, and we have $20 in there as of the end of January.
Correct. There's some additional ones that have been identified throughout the year. For example, Mike Griffiths on the American Planning Association, trying to get him into more classes just to get a wider scope of what's happening out there from an urban planning standpoint, as well as myself trying to educate myself further in whether it's in this particular case, community development issues.
Any questions? Keep it in. Okay. 20-4265, $100 for staff and travel expense and $100 for staff and local meeting expense.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe we reduced this expense from last year. Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, same amount.
Is it the same?
It's
Then
just
it's the same.
move to discretionary from maintenance.
Okay. We'll keep it in.
You don't reduce.
I'm sorry?
You don't reduce.
Yes, I do. I just reduced several lines up.
Can we talk about account 204325? So it looks like pretty much all the line items have gone up.
43, what?
Right, particularly
yeah.
electrical inspections
Correct.
and plumbing. Is there a lot more
Well, what we're
inspections?
expecting right now is with the McNaughton subdivision. That's probably the primary focus. Remodeling has been going up as well with the economy of where it is. So we are anticipating some increases.
What about Wood Springs? They will tell you to do that. as well.
Correct. That's, besides McNaughton, we have Wood Springs and some of the other developments. And
Okay.
But those are reimbursable generally, correct?
correct, but it's still an expense.
Right. Have we increased the revenue to reflect that also?
Dan, I don't think the electrical inspections is an example, because this isn't contractual services. So I think the electrical inspections, I don't recall if those are actually the reimbursable part, because I think we're just charging that in a permit fee.
On the expense side, on this account, we're charging that as part of the inspections that are being conducted. So on the revenue side,
Could it be?
It should be.
Last year, we also had that individual that did it at a fairly reasonable price. I haven't seen any bills come through him lately.
he
Has-
passed away.
Okay, so, and the guys that are doing it now are quite a bit more expensive than he was, as I recall
That
also.
is correct. I believe it's 1.25% additional times, I should say, not percent.
Hey, there's nobody else out there like the guy that died that
Been trying to find one. Unfortunately, they're either retired, don't want to do anything more, and they need to be,
it's fine as long as we've gone
Licensed.
through the thought process.
yes.
Anything else on page 27? Let's go to page 28. Any questions on this page at all? Okay, that gets us through community development. It is 8 o'clock. Let's take a 10-minute break, everybody, so before we get into police.
Microphones are on.
Okay, everybody, let's go to the police department budget. We're going to start with page 29. Under personnel, salaries, we budgeted for FYE 16 $462,000. We came in $15,000 less at $447,649. Under salaries for officers, we are at budgeted at $3,321,000. We came in about $89,000 less at $3,232,000. Our overtime, we budgeted $480,000. We came in over at $24,000. However, our total savings in that area was $79,000. We're going to come in at $4,184,000 anticipating. If you take a look at FYE 17, we're going to be going up $237,000 to $4,432,000. $30,000 increase in salaries under civilians, and then $231,000 in salaries for officers. But refresh my memory, this is going to be a full staff now for the police, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As we go down to benefits, our budget for benefits for the police were $1,896,000. We came in $1,809,000 of savings of $86,000. Mostly it's because of medical life insurance, which we budgeted at $497,000, and we came in at $412,000. Again, if you take a look at it, we go back to $510,000, an increase of $98,000. The question that I have right off the bat for FYE 17, are we going to be pretty accurate on the increase of $98,000 to $510,000?
Yeah, I think the 412 we have in there now is one of those adjustments we're going to make as we reallocate internally the insurance expense. But the 510 is based on our employee count and the current rates that we anticipate.
Okay. All right. If I take a look at medical life insurance and police pension, if we take a look at FYE 17, 18, and 19, medical life insurance is going to go up $98,000 to $510 for 17. As we go to FYE 18, it's going to go up another $43,000 to $553. And then FYE 19, we're going to go up another $47,000 for a total of $600,000. An increase in medical in that area of basically $180,000 in 3 years. Just want everybody to notate that. Let's go to police pension. And I brought this up again in the beginning. If you take a look at our estimated and our budgeted, our police pension, we're budgeted $1,200,000, and that's what we're going to come in at.
We're actually going to come in $1,210,000, the actual number.
$10,000 above it?
$10,000 higher.
Okay. But if you take a look at the police pension for FYE 17, we're going from $1,210,000 to $1,412,000, an increase of $202,000. As we go to FYE 18 for the police pension, we're going to go from $1,412,000 to $1,553,000, an increase of $141,000. As we go to FYE 19, that 1553 is going to be $1,709,160, an increase of $156,000. So basically from FYE 16 to 19, we're going to be going up $509,000 in pension, or exactly 43%. And again, I just wanted everybody to notate, because we will have a discussion on that as we get towards the end of this budget meetings.
And at this point, the number for the fiscal year ending 17 is a hard number based on the actuarial studies.
Correct.
The 2 years going out include 10% estimated increases. And obviously, we'll know those as we get into the end of the fiscal year, beginning of the next fiscal year.
And those actuarial numbers are set by the state, and that's based on 100% contribution, correct?
Well, they're done by an actuary. The state sets different parameters and reviews
Right.
them, but they're reviewed by an outside actuary that the police pension fund hires every year.
Okay. That's the
And
number
they
that
at the 100%.
So
The
Michael,
number 412 is
Michael, that would be $500,000 out of the general fund to go to that.
exactly. And
Or
it's-
money that doesn't go into capital.
Well, it just comes out of the general fund. If we keep the tax levy in the general fund the same, we're reducing the amount that we have available to transfer to the capital fund by that
Capital
amount,
fund, okay.
because
So
we're
in-
absorbing that.
And again, in layman's terms, that is set by the state, that's not set by us.
So is there a reason that the pension didn't go up between 15 and 16?
It was a very good year. Actually went down a little bit. It was
That's
actually,
what I mean. So the actuary came with better numbers for us, for lack
Yeah,
of a better term?
also,
describing?
also that year, the police contract expired in April of 14, so you had no salary increases. A couple things drive the actuarial calculations, the salary increases as well as the performance of the investments. And since we didn't have the contract approved until just recently, there were no salary increases basically for a year and a half for purposes of the actuary computing it.
Okay. Let's go down to operating costs. Under operating costs, liability insurance, we budgeted 238. We're going to come in at 210,000. That number's accurate. We're going to be 28,000 under, correct?
Best our estimate is, yeah.
Okay, thank you. As we go out to FYE 17, we're going to go take that back up to 227,000. Under maintenance for vehicles, we budgeted 62,200. We came in $18,000 less to 44,200. The big savings was down in vehicle gas and oil. We budgeted 115,000, but we saved $45,000 in gas and oil to 70,000. And I'm assuming that number is going to be pretty accurate. Okay. If you take a look at it, we're budgeting up to 90,000 for an increase of 20,000. Again, we're anticipating increase in the price of gas and oil, but again, it's an estimate. Under contractual, we budgeted 395. We actually came in at 377,000 because our DUMEG Fiat Child Center, we budgeted 24,000. We only came in at 7,000.
If I can backtrack here for
Sure.
a second, Brian, I think we need some clarification on this. Because at January 31st, we're at the 24,680 on the DUMEG Fiat. I believe based on some emails back and forth, that amount was supposed to come out of the seized funds.
Yeah,
Account.
that was originally allocated out of the general fund budget, but we're reallocating that out of the state seized
But
funds.
currently on the financials then, Marie, we need to make a note, we need to transfer that amount, because currently we're showing $24,000 in that account as opposed to the 7. And there's also a couple other accounts. The telephone, right now, we're, remember on that other account, we're budgeting over. Here, it's showing 12,000 estimated, and we're already almost at $13,000
Yeah,
for the year.
there's a fee in there that we're reviewing, actually about $1,000 for computer fee.
And public relations, we're also over, you're projecting 3,500. We're already at 52, a little over 5,200 through January. But postage and mailings, we're only at 500 versus the 4,200. So and boards and commissions, we're also over the 7,000. We're at 7,238 at January. So a few of those were a little bit over already.
Can I ask a question on that one, on that line item?
Which one?
Boards and commissions.
Okay.
So for fiscal year 15, was it 19,847? And then we're at 5,500, 7,000, but then it jumps back up again as a request for 19,900 and year 17, and then, fiscal year 18, you're forecasting at 24,000, but then fiscal year 19, you're back down to 17,700. How do they configure that out?
I believe
In
that's.
fiscal year 18, it's the sergeant's
Yeah.
test that we added for 18,000. And then that drops off and is not in fiscal year 19, whereas the police officer testing is in both the 17 and 19.
So it's a separate board or commission that does the testing for the sergeants?
Separate test process. So, yeah, we incur additional expenses. We incur expenses when we're hiring and testing for police officer list, and then we also have the same for the sergeant's list. The sergeant's list is typically good for 3 years, and the police is 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Under capital and equipment, we budgeted 131,385. That's what we're going to come in at. We're looking for discretionary of 103,909, so a drop in that area. But as we take a look at FYE 18 and 19, we're looking at an increase to 297 for both years. And that's going to be for the cars,
Ours, yeah.
okay? Just as an FYI. And those are pretty much, even though it's going to be technically discretionary, it's going to be something that's going to be a necessity, as we always say. So.
As we bring back the bike patrol.
Thank you, Michael. Let's move on from there. Total expenditures.
What are our cars now? 7 years? Are they at 6 or 7 years?
I thought we got 5 out of them.
John, the cars, are we getting 4 or?
They were purchased between the end of 2011,
Okay.
put in service in 2012.
Got it.
We get John 5? I thought we got 5.
Yeah, I thought we got 5.
We're gonna be over 5.
Okay.
Are you talking about how many cars or how many?
No, I
No,
thought
but
we
years.
What's the average life?
Yeah,
we were going to try to get 5 years out of them,
Yeah,
at least.
at least.
Yeah, maybe 6. We were talking about that when we went out and did that.
would we,
So
would,
we're looking at fiscal year ending 2018 to replace 12 patrol vehicles.
yeah, are they looking at the Tahoes again, or that type of
Well,
vehicle?
we'll look at that when we get closer.
I know, okay.
All right, so total expenditures for, that we were budgeted was 7,318,000, savings of 306,000, but again, those numbers are gonna probably be a little bit less, or the actual will be a little bit higher, so our savings will be a little bit less. But if you take a look at it again, as we look out for FYE 18 and 19, if we're at 7,012,000, we're looking to go to 7,638,000, and 17 and 18, 8,208,000, and then FYE 19 at 8,537,000. So again, I just want to keep you, the three big items is the pension, medical, as well as the cars. Any questions in that area?
I did have one question, Brian, just in terms of the current year projection, these salaries, officers, that includes the retro pay.
Correct.
I'm sure. Thank you.
All right, let's go to page 30. Before I go to overtime for 40-4030, does anybody have any questions about 10 and 20?
What is outside detail? Details.
That's typically the churches, which
Okay.
we get reimbursed for.
Okay.
40-4030 overtime, 30,000. We're going to start with Darien Fest, 12,500. I always say this, we're OIO, we're obligated and voluntary officers.
That was moved to discretionary too.
Well, I think last year we had some of these expenses in maintenance if the council approved before, and I know last year the council said, try to put those if they're truly discretionary, so we tried to move as much back to discretionary as possible, but that's the estimated amount, for our overtime for the Darien Fest.
And that's the same thing I would say about 4th of July parade too.
Brian, is it too soon on the Darien Fest thing to know if there's going to be any changes?
Yeah, I don't think the chamber knows yet, so we don't know.
Really?
They're actually looking at moving the event, and I actually talked to Claire today, and they have not made any final decisions.
Okay.
Well, we got to work under the premise that it's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's. I think it's just a matter of where it's going to happen. I think they're looking at maybe the Sportsplex as an alternative to Community Park, but I think we'll know that fairly soon.
We back up just 1 second. This is a question more for Marie and Paul, because we're supposed to get reimbursed from the chamber based on their performance, based on their net revenue that they receive. Have they done the calculation? Have we been reimbursed with respect to last year's at this point?
I thought we were. I could look up the dollar amount, but
Okay. Could you just verify that
yeah, I know.
that we were, and they provided us an accounting, and I would imagine that we look over that accounting?
And then K-9 fixed overtime again. We have the K-9s.
Yeah, that's really. I mean, it's really a fixed fee to have the
Okay.
K-9. It's primarily the officers' additional compensation per the union contract to care for the dog on basically off hours.
Obviously they're under discretionary, but there's nothing that we should really.
I guess I'm just curious to hear, we have a new police chief now, just to hear your thoughts in terms of the K-9 units. You believe they're effective, very positive thing? Your feelings.
Properly used and deployed, yes. I asked Deputy Chief Cooper about how they were deployed. A lot of police municipalities deploy them just as a K-9 unit. And
Ray, could you put your mic up just a little bit, make sure everybody at home hears you?
yeah, I thought I heard it coming through, so sounds good. So I think the K-9 units are good when it's properly deployed. And why I'm saying that is a lot of agencies deploy their K-9 just as a K-9 unit, and I think that you don't get the best return on that officer, because all they're doing is responding to a sniff or a track or some type of call for that K-9. In Darien, they don't do it that way. They assign their K-9 to as a regular patrol car. So you're getting that bang for that buck from that officer. So he's responding to report calls and in-progress calls and service calls, just like he would if he didn't have that K-9. But then when it's, the K-9 is needed, then the K-9 is used. So in that regard, it's a good process to, the way to implement a K-9 unit.
Thank you.
Any questions on that page? Let's go to page 31.
And Mike, we did get $2,000 for the Darien Fest.
So we'll still have to look at we'll look at the formula too.
Because that's less than we got the prior year, and the prior year they lost one day with the weather, I know.
Is that for the
beer
amusement
sales were
tax,
down.
though, or is that
No,
for
that should be,
reimbursement?
it should be no, I don't know what it is.
We'll look at that tomorrow, Mike, and make sure.
Okay. Unless anybody has any questions from 4120, I'm going to go to 40-4213. Anything, questions in that area? Dues and subscriptions, 6,300. We have 2,100 for dues, 4,200 for subscriptions. Guys, take your time. You got 12 seconds.
Well, I think, John, on that one, you probably sent additional detail to me, but in terms of the budget doc, it's just listed under dues and subscriptions. So if you have the detail, you can kind of rattle that off.
I guess, didn't we have the same thing last year? I can't remember.
It was a little less last.
6175 last year total.
Okay.
So it's up to
But just
slightly.
refresh our memory, what are they for again?
There's a number of them. Alias is it's a cost in order to be with Alias dues. Alias is the organization that helps with mutual aid. DuPage County Chiefs Association, IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, is a national organization. Illinois Association of Chiefs, Illinois Association of Property and Evidence Handlers, ITOA, Illinois Tactical Officers Association. Not sure what that is. Learn Records Management of Illinois. K9, NTOA, National Tactical Officers Association. PERF, Police Executive Research Forum. The School Resource Officers Association. Juvenile Officers Association, and West Suburban Detective Association. Those are the dues. There's a number of subscriptions for American Cop Magazine, Datacom, driver's license guides, Guardian Trackers, software that we use to manage issues within the police department, track sick time, discipline, recognition, and the like. IACP Net, it's a research research arm of IACP. We recently reinstituted performance evaluations, and IACP Net was where I went to grab the boilerplates and different types of evaluations that other organizations were using. So it worked out well. Illinois Prosecutor Services, Labor Relations, Information Systems, Police Magazine, Roll Call News, U.S. Identity, Identification Manual, West Payment Center. Those are usually manuals for your Illinois complaint book.
Okay. 6,100 we used last year, right?
6175. Just Chief, again, you're taking a fresh look at these things. I assume that you're comfortable with all of these, or you'll review them and make sure they're appropriate. Maybe you haven't done it at this point, but at some point, if we leave it in the budget, you'll see what you're comfortable with. And I mean, maybe you want to supplement, and maybe there's something you feel is more appropriate than what's in there. But,
These are pretty typical organizations. There's a couple like the records management I wasn't involved in before. I think all of these at one time or another I was probably a member of. Those are all good. Subscriptions. This is my first time. In fact, when I left the police department, I had Guardian tracking in for some of, like a project for this year. And then when I got here and they're using it, I saw the value of it. It's a pretty nice system. So most of these are all pretty good subscriptions and dues. You're getting your bang for your buck out of them.
yeah, thank you for your input.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll leave them in. Anybody have any issues with it?
I don't have any issues, but I guess what thought occurred to me as I went upstairs and looked at my mailbox with all the publications that are routed to the aldermen. I mean, I don't know how many subscriptions we actually have outside of the police department, but it seems like a lot. I don't know if any of those are complimentary, but
Yes, some we get with, when you're, as an example, in the City Managers Association, we get a magazine.
it comes
and
with
some of
membership,
those,
then it's
but-
not its own thing, probably.
Yeah,
then
it's not
some
its
of them.
own thing.
Okay.
I'm not on that routing list, so I think most of the things that is routed among the elected officials, we do not pay for.
Okay.
A lot of those are complimentary magazines. There are probably some sales, but I don't know exactly.
Power, parking,
Parking.
IT, municipal,
IT.
municipal IT,
Yeah.
police.
Okay. So I was thinking, there's just so many of them, and I don't know
the-
who has the time to read.
Outside of the
all
police,
of
there's
them.
probably 3 or 4. We get a public works publication, we get a finance publication, more of the standard type, but that
Okay.
again come with the memberships in the
Okay.
organizations.
Okay.
Just if I can, on the lighter side, Chief, you'll probably get a kick out of this, but the first year after I was elected, doing my due diligence and everything, going through the checks and paying the bills and everything, and one bill comes through, and it was for 20 Glock magazines. And geez, my God, I questioned the chief. I said, why did I need 20 copies of this magazine?
Well, if he likes it, he'll read it again 20 times over.
Well, at least they called it a magazine, which is the correct term. Everybody likes to call it a clip, which is technically incorrect.
It's funny.
I learned something.
You learned
that day.
something.
All right, let's move to page 32, 40-4239, $3,500 for PR materials.
I don't have the actual.
Let's back up to
Yeah, can we back up?
4225.
I was just gonna say-
Unless you want to
Go ahead.
I don't have the.
You
The
probably got more, yeah.
radar sign
Read
maintenance.
the wrong thing.
Radar sign maintenance.
Something
It's a new
new,
account.
3,000, yeah, been added.
That was because it was. Radar wasn't on the sign.
We purchased 2 mobile portable radar signs that we have Public Works move around the city when we get complaints of speeding autos. These things count, they take pictures, they do a lot of different things, and the maintenance contract is one, if somebody damages the sign, the company says send it back. If it's in 100 pieces, we'll fix it or replace it based on that. But it also works off telemetry, and it sends reports. Dan Salvato from Public Works gets notified when the batteries need to be changed, so we can keep them operational. And then we get the information from the sign that it collects, the times, how many vehicles, and then we can use that to deploy officers to problem areas within the city. So we've had them about a year. We started out with one. It worked out so well, we bought a second one, and that was using the task force officer money. So
it's a
this is a annual maintenance to keep it,
It's a maintenance contract
Right.
essentially on the equipment.
yes.
Anything else from that section? Okay. Let's go down to 40-4239, PR materials, 3,500.
And last year we had a total of 5,000. This year we got a breakdown of 3,500 on each for a total of 7. So we're up 2,000 and discretionary and maintenance. Just to guess like a little more description.
What was the other breakout? I didn't catch that.
Let's see, what are we on? 4239. 4239. Last year was a total of 5,000. This year we have 3,500 each on maintenance and 3,500 on discretionary
Gotcha.
for a total of
I didn't
7.
catch that. Thank you.
What's the discretion? What's the difference discretionary and the maintenance, and why are we up 2,000?
It says 5 for total.
That's what we spend for this year. I think when we discussed this, what we were trying to decide is if there were some things that we wanted to do out of what we spent this year so far. We buy like sticker badges, lollipops, things like that, and those aren't the big costs, but we've also done printing for door hangers. When we had burglaries or residential burglaries, we'd have door hangers printed out, and we go out and have officers put those on residents' doors, reminding them, we've had
Lock your cars too.
right. We do the same thing
that's-
for
This is like a public relations contingency fund, that other 3,500. That's what you're saying.
yeah, but again, is there some other program, and again, with the new chief now, we haven't got that far to discuss, but that was pretty much where we were going in that direction, is if we wanted to do some other public relations things. We go to block parties in the summer, and again, that's not the expensive part. I think printing was one of the bigger expenses that we had, because, you hang on door hangers and you buy cases of them.
John, I'm sorry, let me interject though, as
Yeah.
I'm looking at the spreadsheet, the 35 under maintenance actually is an error in the formula, so,
Is it?
yeah, and I'm looking at the backup page, so we have 3,500 in discretionary, and somehow that maintenance number carried up, not in a formula, so that should be,
Should be 35 total,
it
correct?
should be 35 in the discretionary,
Discretionary.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
actually
so it's not 7,000, right?
Actually, it's a reduction of.
Correct.
Good job.
It's from 5,000 to 3,500.
We'll keep it at 3,500. Anybody have any issues with it? $1,800 for Darien Fest camera. I think that pays for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the eyes in the sky. It's two separate units with telescopic cameras up in the air. They have flashing warning lights, and again, it helps curtail when people see that. Maybe you're not going to get the fights. And again, we have fights at Darien Fest, but last year at Darien Fest, we had our crime analyst monitoring the cameras. And again, it's a remote control, so you can sweep the area, you can zoom in, or you can just let them record, and the camera's it moves around on its own. We've been doing that, I think, for 3-4 years now.
Right.
How about a drone that'll just move around for you?
You gotta have somebody to fly it.
All right, let's go down to 40-4265. $10,000, $2,000 IACP.
Yeah, last year was 1,000.
Last year it was here in Chicago. Next year it's in San Diego. There's, used to rotate a bunch and through a number of different states. Now there's just 4 states, and so Chicago, San Diego, Philadelphia, and Orlando. So this coming year will be in San Diego.
Okay.
And that accounts for the increase in lodging from 2,000 also to 6,000. But I did notice in the lodging, the detail on the international, that must be what you're talking about, the International Association, 5 nights at $2,000. Is that $400 a night? Or it's showing 2 individuals or
It's
people?
2 individuals.
2 individuals going, so it'd be $200 a night?
Correct.
Because I noticed most of the other ones are about $100 a night.
Yeah.
Maybe that's California marketplace. I'm not sure. Okay.
I'm sure.
Any issues with this? Okay, let's go to page 33. Before I go down to capital purchases, does anybody have anything from 4267 down to 4337? Anything they might want to talk about? Only question that I have on Ducom at 353,000, is that a pretty standard cost every year?
It's a fairly standard cost, but actually it went down 2% or
Yes.
2.2% or something like that, a little better cost.
Oh, I was going to ask that because our last payment was over 90,000, so they're actually decreasing it?
Yes.
We've had some other additional members join, some local.
Additional members joining. You also have some legislation that was passed last year about 911 consolidation. So there's going to be different formulas that come out for reimbursement through the ETSBs and how that's going to work. So hopefully that's just the first of money savings.
Great, thank
If the legislation works the way it was supposed to.
Alderman Schauer, also under capital purchases, the tasers at 11,909. Deputy Chief Cooper advised I could take that out. I believe, Jen, they're still under warranty, the taser.
Still under warranty.
So that would be a 0. And the furniture replacement at 17, Chief Thomas said we can take the seized funds for that. So we can, I'll take that out of the general fund budget.
Is the
Where is the furniture? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, is the 17,000 for furniture replacement, is that just for the police side?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
You have to be right.
Ours
Yes.
is-
It has
ours
to
is
be.
also-
Gotcha.
Ours is in the other one.
So we're gonna get all their old chairs, Ted.
Oh, we'll bring them over now.
I'm working an angle on this one.
Chairs are 22 years old, Brad.
Better than these, Ted.
And their magazines, yeah. Also, if we get back up to Lexipol, this year it's $7,200, last year $5,600.
Yes, this is the first increase they've done in quite a few years. We've been with them, I want to say about 5 years. And because of they have a new platform they operate off on, and they've done a lot of improvements to what the system does. And they haven't passed that cost on to customers for that many years. So this was the first time they're gonna up our costs for that.
Yeah, we're not going to municipal. All right, and then let's go to page 34, under 3 administration vehicles for 75,000.
Yeah, I had a thought on this for whatever it's worth. I know in the past we used to take our older squad cars and turn those over for these purposes, for basically the administration purposes. And since we're looking at buying new cars 2 years and 3 years down the road, would it make sense to take 3 of our older ones at this point and use those as the replacements here, and then buy 3 new ones at this point already in terms of the regular squads?
Well, I know since we started using the vehicle rating system, which, you know, it's not an exact science, but it does pretty good. I think the vehicles that they're starting to turn down next year, John, I don't know the condition. You know, we've budgeted revenue for those. You talking about those, the Tahoes?
Well, no, what I'm saying is why not take 3 of the Tahoes now? Instead of buying 3 new administrative, take 3 of the older Tahoes and move them into here instead of buying these 3 new.
Yeah, the only reason is we're expecting the Tahoes not to be great vehicles. So you're going to run into the anticipated maintenance cost. They're bigger vehicles. The gas mileage is actually pretty good. But John, I don't know if you looked at turning down the Tahoes at all. I know they're obviously a different type of vehicle than some of the administrative type vehicles, but
Right.
go ahead.
Well, again, the Tahoes are what they call pursuit rated vehicles, so heavy duty everything. The tires are expensive. You know, the alternators are super expensive, and they're made to be a marked police car with all the equipment on it. So it isn't that you can't turn them down, but when we looked at administrative vehicles, I think last year, we were looking at a more economical vehicle that got better mileage. You don't need pursuit rated vehicles for non-police patrol use, I guess is what I'd say. Like a detective's car, they're not going to use it in that type of operation. So we were looking again at the state contract. The Taurus is $19,000, and again, the cars with upfitting, which means putting the police equipment in, that comes in less than $5,000 with the cost of the car. And again, the cars we got last year are doing really well mileage-wise. You know, they go a lot further than the big V8s. The Tauruses we're looking at are 4-cylinder engines, but they work very well. They're economical. And again, the parts shouldn't be as expensive. If you need to replace tires or brakes, you're not paying for that heavy-duty equipment. So.
Okay.
Before we vote on that,
Oh, I guess also I'll bring this up on behalf of Alderman MacGyver. Also note remote starter, $564 per car on those. Is that needed on those cars?
Well, again, the cars that are taken home, like detectives, and think about winter, a lot of times they sit outside, and if we get called, you gotta defrost the car before you can take off. And again, depending on what the type of call is, we wanna be able to get there. So if we wake somebody up at 2 o'clock in the morning and that car's sitting out frozen, you can remote start it and get dressed and then get in the car and go, instead of leaving it sit there, you know, while it's defrosting.
wasn't there a budget in there for a supervisor's vehicle? Or did we take that out?
took it out.
Yeah, that one, yeah, there was a vehicle that they were looking to replace. I think, John, trying to go another year with that vehicle.
Right.
And then get it
again,
with the
because
Tahoes.
We're looking at 18 for replacement of 12 patrol vehicles, which is our main patrol fleet is 12. We have the K-9 car, which we just replaced that 2 years ago, so that doesn't need to be replaced, but we're looking to replace the 12 primary patrol vehicles. If we had done that one, then you have that oddball where it'd be a year behind. And again, we may not go to Tahoe's next year. It may be like the Ford Explorer.
Okay.
We'll have to look at that as we get closer in.
But the point is, we're gonna be fine pushing that back, is what I'm asking. Okay. All right, so let's vote on the 3 admin vehicles. How do you guys wanna approach it? Who wants it?
Well, can I ask what they're using now, and are there?
The vehicles that we're using now are 2007 Crown Vic, 2 of those, and a 2006 Ford Explorer. Manager Vanna talked about how the maintenance goes through this process of assigning value to them, and they were well beyond that rating, and that's why they were put forth as for replacement.
Do we know what the mileage is on them? I'm just curious.
It's 195, 145, and 147
195?
on the
Actually, the 195 car, if you have that sheet, it says 71%, which is under. The trans is out, and the trans is gonna be about $2,000, so it's not.
We're chasing good money after bad.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's vote on this, guys. Any questions?
No, I'm fine.
1, 2, 3, 4. Tina, yes or no?
Yes, yes.
That's 5, okay, let's leave it in. Okay, guys, we're gonna end it here. Before we move on, couple housekeeping items. When we come back next week, we're gonna go in and talk about the Neighbors Magazine as well as
The whole category.
Okay, we're gonna go into that. And then we'll go into Public Works, municipal streets, I should say. Municipal services, gosh.
And then probably right into capital projects, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Oh,
and again,
Well, one question, MFT, I asked Brian about this, and we haven't gotten the MFT budget distributed yet.
Yeah, I can send that out for next meeting. We finished the MFT and a couple of the smaller funds, but I have those, yes.
Because I guess my only curiosity there would be is if, because it runs pretty lean, and the last few years we've gotten extra funds from the state, but now I think we're running probably.
Yeah,
a
I'm not
deficit.
contemplating the extra funds, and I think at about year that again is one of those, that the state gives you the money, we try to use that and really not carry much of a balance, because
Right,
it's
but
supposed
we
to
might
be
have to
used.
supplement it if
Job
the
description
expenses
for the
are such
CSO.
that the
Yeah.
amount the state.
But I'll
gives us
send it
wouldn't be
out, I'll
sufficient.
send it out for next meeting.
Describe it to a couple people.
all right, so our next budget meeting will be next Tuesday, February 23rd at 6:30 PM. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Good night, everybody.
Turning the minutes off.